I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
Well, you know what time it is.
All right, everybody, welcome to Bad Wrench Live. This is our live stream that we do once a month, usually last Sunday of the month. So, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. Hope you guys all have a Happy New Year, because I won't probably talk to you until probably closer to the end of January. Today, we are going to be getting caught up on this massive project behind me. This thing was a massive headache from the word go. I'm going to cover everything we did on this vehicle. You guys will see more clips for the next couple of weeks because I got plenty of clips recorded. We're also going to be doing a few other things. Let me just double check everything here, guys. All right. And I am doing almost like a multi-stream for you guys, so hopefully the latency is not too bad. This is kind of a new setup for me, playing with a lot of the new settings that YouTube is offering. So hopefully everything looks good. So far, everything's looking really good. So we'll switch back over here. All right, guys. If you guys got any questions today, just chat them in down below. I'll help you guys answer them, read them on screen. We can even pull up some help stuff if you guys want me to really get into some of that. I can pull up. Even pull up some other stuff here for you guys. For now, I'm just going to pop up some new stuff a little bit if we get time to get into that. All right, let me see if I can pop the news in here for you guys. Okay. So I would have to definitely resize that. Okay. Just messing around with this a little bit until we get some more people in here, guys. Oh. I'm just pulling this up in case we want to cover some of the new stuff while we're here. For now, I'm just gonna go ahead and hide that. Double check a few more things, and then let's go ahead and get into today's topic. There'll be some stuff I'll have to play with later. I don't like the latency today, but we do have a snowstorm coming through today for me. So we'll get going. If you guys got any questions, chat them in down below. But let's go ahead and start off with today's topic. Last time we did a live stream, which would have been towards the end of November, our topic was buying used cars. Well, today let's cover what happens when maybe you bought the wrong used car. What you guys see behind me is a 06 Nissan Pathfinder. This Pathfinder needed a lot of work. I'm going to cover everything we did with to this in this video, but I'm also going to explain how you guys can calculate this when you're going to buy that used car and decide, do you have a project that's going to go off the rails? Jay, good to have you in here today. Jay is one of our long-term mods. So, yes, the one behind me here, guys, this thing has gone through an extensive amount of work. Crazy amount of everything that it needed. To get you guys kind of started, basically, my customer bought this because they have a rather large family and they need to haul quite a few kids around. In order to do that, they needed something that would seat at least 7 kids, not including the 2 adults up front. So that requires a lot of seating in a vehicle. They got this one that will seat 6 comfortably. So that was a nice feature for them. And at the time, this was about all they could find that was in their price range for what they were looking at. That being said, this is where some of the problems happen. So you find what you're looking for, you get what you want, but then you get it home and you realize the disaster that you bought. Let me grab something real quick. Actually, I got that put away. So I'm going to basically roll through the list in the top of my head. There's going to be a few miscellaneous pieces that I will have forgotten that we did to the vehicle, but here's the list as it sits. In the rear, back there, we needed to do rear shocks and rear sway bar end link. The one sway bar end link was so broken that it wasn't even connected anymore. So usually they'll get sloppy. They won't usually completely disconnect. This one completely disconnected, so the rear sway bar was only being held in on the passenger side. The driver's side was disconnected. And what that does is when you go into a corner, it'll start wanting to walk the back of the vehicle out because you don't have it stabilized. This is one vehicle that the rear sway bar is really important. This has an independent rear suspension, meaning that it operates independently. The only thing that connects the left side to the right side is that sway bar. That's it. That's all that connects it. Check some of the chats quick before we move on to the front, guys. I don't know why my stream is lagging behind. I'm trying to get it caught up, guys, but just doesn't want to cooperate very well. Jay, how is the sound? How is everything working and looking? Do we look good? Is the sound good? I just wanted to double check everything here. All right, so cool. We don't have as much lag as I think we do. Because if you were able to get that, then you're not too far behind me. Awesome. Cool. All right, so let's roll on to awesome. So let's roll on to what we needed to do up to the front of this vehicle. As you guys can see behind me here, this mirror is broken. Just to give you an idea how, I mean, that cover is shot and the glass is broken out. So what I'll need to do is replace those mirrors. I have those mirrors here. I will be doing that later today. I'll be making a clip on that when I do it. So that covers everything I needed to fix up to the doors. Now is where the project becomes a runaway project, guys. These are the kind of projects you try to avoid when buying any used vehicles. Because if you're already going in this deep to fix this many issues, you have to ask yourself, was the vehicle even maintained or taken care of? And in this case, I can tell you this one has had zero maintenance since the day it left the assembly line. Only 2 items I noticed were actually fixed on the vehicle, and I kind of wonder if it was just done so that they could sell the car, meaning that no basic maintenance was ever done to this. So let me double check a few more things here, guys. Awesome. Cool. Everything's looking good. If you guys got any questions, chat them in down below. I will read those on screen as we continue on here. All right, so let's talk about what happened right here. So once we got the vehicle up in the air and we were able to start taking things apart, I started noticing, at least on the motor side, there's a lot of stuff I'm going to cover underneath that hood here in just a little bit. I want to cover right here. Right here, we had a lot of money spent. Not only did we have brakes, so rotors and pads, but we also had to replace the steering rack, which was leaking on the passenger side, which meant the whole rack had to be replaced. Also, we had to put new tie rod ends in it. These were the things that needed to be replaced. So we also did that along with the sway bar end links up front, because we had to release the sway bar in order to gain access to remove not only steering rack, but also to take out the struts. Struts needed to be replaced. But there's one more big ticket item that really hit this car hard, and it was the wheel bearing. And these wheel bearings on here are not very cheap. Not only that, but you need a good quality torque wrench in order to fix this wheel bearing, because the preload on that bearing is adjusted by how tight that axle nut is. If you over tighten it, you're going to smash the bearing. If you leave it too loose, you're going to separate the bearing and you'll destroy the wheel bearing prematurely. This is why having the right tools for the job makes all the difference. If you go at this with an impact and you just run it down with an impact, you're going to damage the bearing. Then you might only get 1,000 miles out of a brand new bearing before you have to redo it. So this is why it's important to know your steps, know your process, know how to take things apart. What was really fighting us on this was there was a lot of surface rust on everything. Every nut, every bolt, everything had surface rust. This means that the vehicle sat for a long time. Moisture was coming up from underneath, causing everything to get rusty. This was a problem. And that problem only got highlighted after we went underneath the hood. As we went underneath the hood, we noticed a lot more damage. We noticed a bad alternator, a bad power steering pump. Both of those had to be replaced, but in order to do that, we had to take the fan out, meaning we had to take the fan clutch out. The fan clutch was bad. The idler pulley was bad. The tensioner was bad. The belt was bad. These were all huge, giant, blaring red flags for what was coming next. What came next was a bad throttle body. We then had to pull the upper part of the plenum apart. So a plenum will come in a 2-piece on newer vehicles. You'll have a bottom piece and a top piece. Oftentimes when you're doing coils that are buried inside the valve covers, you will be taking a top plenum piece off, meaning you'll need to pull all those bolts, remove the plenum to gain access to do valve covers and or coils or plugs. When we took the upper plenum off, all the bolts were rusty and I wound up having to use a specialty tool. Let me grab that. If you guys ever have rusty fasteners, buy this tool right here. This is what you want. So this one I got at Napa. and they do make ones now that are even bigger sets, but this saves you a bunch of headaches. When you have a bolt that's stripped out and the socket won't work on it anymore, you will need to use a socket that is a grip edge style socket, meaning that when you put it down onto it, as you turn it, it's biting in the opposite direction to loosen the fastener. So when I put this socket down on there and I start turning it off, it will automatically bite onto the head of the bolt and pull it off. Now, this does work if the bolt is shear or the head of the bolt is sheared off, but the stud is sticking out. You can use these for that as well. You just need to find one that fits. But once you strip it off flush, then you have to weld a nut to it, and then you can back it off with the nut that you welded on, as long as you got the nut welded on tight enough. But again, this is a lifesaver. See if there's a part number for you guys. Okay, so it's very tiny up in this corner. That's your part number. It's like a 394002. Yep. So that is a lifesaver when you're dealing with rusty bolts and rusty nuts that you need to take apart. Those sockets have saved me more times than I care to talk about. You guys got any questions? Chat them in down below. I'll help you guys with your projects. Also, we will dive into whatever topics you guys bring up after I finish my recap on this vehicle. So we are down to what happened at the plenum. And I'll get you guys back up here. Awesome. All right, so we're at the plenum, guys. We took the plenum off. We were ready to start taking the coils out and look at the spark plugs. Before I did that, I looked in there and I saw it was wet along the valve cover. Anytime that you see that it's wet there, that means that your valve cover gaskets are leaking oil. Your valve cover gaskets are shot and they need to be replaced. On this particular model, whenever you're going to do the valve covers, if you don't have the metal valve covers, you should replace the plastic ones. The reason why is that they get heat soaked over time. They can crack really easy, especially when you're retightening all the bolts and fasteners. The last thing you want to do is waste your time with the headache of taking everything back apart because those cracked the old valve covers. So anytime it's plastic, I automatically will get new valve covers. Anytime they're metal, I will reseal them as long as I can get them cleaned up good. If I can't get them cleaned up and there's a lot of debris in them, I'll just replace them anyway, because a lot of times they have breathers built into them. If you can't get all that gunk out of there, then you're not benefiting the system. When you have a built-in PCV valve in your valve covers, that's when more than likely you're just going to replace them, no matter if it's metal or plastic. If the PCV valve is extended out and it's separated from the valve cover, you can easily just put in a new PCV valve and you don't got to worry about it. But that's usually on older vehicles such as Crimson Vortec, which is hiding over there. We'll talk about him a little bit later. So when we pull the coils and the plugs, they were original to the vehicle. This vehicle has 163,000 miles on it. It's an 06. That means that these plugs have been in here for nearly 20 years. They were long due. They should have been done probably half of that. So they probably should have been done prior to 2016. This is why we wondered if the vehicle sat for a long period of time, because usually when they sit for extended periods of time, you'll notice those kind of problems. So we went through, put the new plugs in it, put the new valve cover gaskets in it, put the new upper intake gaskets back in it, started bolting that all down with new hardware. If you guys are fighting your old fasteners and they're rusty, don't reuse them unless you are in a dire situation where you have to. Most of the time, it's better to go to any Runnings or any hardware store that carries in a selection of bolts that are metric and standard and replace the hardware. I did that on this. I replaced the hardware on the upper intake because I knew if I ever needed to go back in here, I needed this to come apart. And it wasn't going to come apart if I reused the old fasteners. So out with the old, in with the new. We got everything back together. We then started on our alternator and on our power steering pump. All right. Before I go on, make sure you guys toss some wrenches up in the chat. I want to see some wrenches and see who's in. I know we got Jay, my mod. I know I don't do live streams as much, so it might be a little tapered off from usual. But awesome, Jay. Yeah. It's just I haven't been live streaming as much. Jay, would you like to see once a week live streams, or are you liking the way I'm doing it with once a month and clips or short videos? If you think I need to get back to doing more of my live streams, I can do that. I noticed I wasn't getting the engagement, so I kind of, it's your decision. Yeah. What I might do is I might just leave it for once a month for now and just keep doing the clips, because I noticed when I do the live streams, because I'm not pulling as huge engagement, it kind of tapers off my views on other stuff. But I'll watch how this week goes, and then I'll see if this week turns out good and I don't take a hit for it. I might start live streaming again on Sundays. Yeah, I'm looking at the second view. Jay, are you watching on like PC, or because I'm kind of wondering here if the video is looking good or if I'm partially chopped off. Trying to see which one I'm. So you're on iPhone. So when I'm sitting down, it looks good to you, but when I stand up, it's like part of me is chopped off. Is that what it is? 'Cause I just looked at that. Or is it? Or do you have the full screen with everything? See, I'm dealing with this new stream, and I'm trying to figure out if, like, when I'm standing up, I'm not in full screen yet. Okay. So if you're just watching in the normal stream, do you see like all the writing on the screen, or is it just framing it so it's just me? I'm curious about this because I know it does make an impact. Okay, so you do see the writing. All right, so it just resizes it for the mobile device. Awesome. Okay, so YouTube came out with a new feature, guys. I don't know if you know this, but YouTube came out with a new feature that allows me to stream not only for computer, TV, but also cell phone now. And I can multi-stream across all those platforms at the same time. And as long as I click the right button, it automatically does that. But what I didn't know was if it chopped part of me off, or you guys didn't get the writing that I have down below. I didn't know how it actually sets all that up. So thank you, Jay, for that. That really did kind of help me out with that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the steering issues. Guys, the steering on any car can get very costly very quick. And some of the reason for that is the parts. The other part of it is the labor to get in there and do it. I can tell you right now, a steering rack on a Nissan Pathfinder is going to run you almost 500 bucks. That's just the rack. That's not the tie rod ends. That's not getting it aligned after you're done. If you do not do an alignment after putting the rack in, you will have tire issues. It will chew up tires extremely fast because the rack will not be aligned because you're putting that part in. That needs to be aligned to the vehicle once the new one is installed. Give me ones if that makes sense to you. And that's a pro tip for you guys. Anytime you touch steering, get an alignment. You have to get that alignment. Awesome. Thanks, Jay. So yeah, put the new rack in it. Got our tie rod ends in. Then I needed to do the alignment here. And the reason I say that is I needed to be able to drive this to the tire shop that we're going to have the new tires installed. Again, I got a small garage, guys, so I don't have the tire tools here in my own garage. Can I do it? Yes. Have I done it? Yes. The reason I don't is I don't have the space to buy the tire tools. A balancing machine chews up a little bit of space, and so does the tire machine itself that breaks the bead and resets the new tire. So you need to have those tools in order to actually do that part of it. But then the alignment is a huge another issue. And I can do homemade alignments with the tools that you guys see right here. So what that is it's a tool by Quick Trick. Quick Trick. And what their whole setup is they want to give you basic old school tools that allows you to align your vehicle and allows you to set up race cars. So a lot of their tools are sold to people with race cars because they need to set weird cambers and casters in order to get maximum traction on a racetrack. So most people don't know, but most circle tracks are banked. Well, if you have a street alignment on that bank, your tires are going to want to slide off the embankment because they're not going to be on the surface to where they're flat on that curve. So in order to get that straight, what they do is they buy those tools right there and they reset it so that they can be on the road as it's tracking and not have issues. Give me ones if that made sense to you guys. Otherwise, I can go into a little bit deeper breakdown and I can even pull up some pictures. If that got a little confusing, I can break that down a little bit. Awesome. So yeah, just remember, got to get that alignment done. Once you get it done, you're good enough to drive. Right now, this one, I was not able to set the cast and camber with the tools that I have. My Quick Trick alignment tool is missing one of my calibration brackets. So all I can do with mine is set toe in and toe out. Let's break down what the terminology is right now. You have caster, you have camber, and you have toe. Toe is how your tires are sitting like this as it's going straight down the road. Are you towed in? Are you towed out? Or are you at zero toe? Most highway use vehicles need to be zero toe. If they have a negative toe, they're fighting against each other, and you can have a little bit of that. You can have a little bit of negative, but there is a tolerance that you have to be within. That tolerance is usually a maximum of 1/8 inch. So between your front tires, on the front of your tires and on the back of your tires, that measurement has to be within 1/8 inch. It can be in, it can be out, but maximum 1/8 inch before you have to realign. Zero is ideal. Zero will mean that you will not have tire wear. You do not want tire wear. Tires are getting more and more expensive as time goes on. The costs of them are getting really, really crazy. So in order to fix that, we make sure we do our alignments after doing anything with our steering components. So after we put the rack in, after I got it aligned, going through, power steering pump was weak. It was hard to turn the wheel because the pump didn't quite have enough pressure anymore to be able to turn the steering wheel like it is supposed to. So we had to put a pump in it. The pump basically led us to having to take the alternator. The alternator, let me see if I can get, no, I let those parts go. I was going to show you guys the parts, but basically the way this is set up, the alternator sits low, power steering is up a little higher. In order to take the power steering pump out, you have to take the alternator. That means you have to pull the whole front of the motor assembly apart in order to get down to where those pieces are. That means fan shroud and fan clutch gotta come out. You can't do those two items without taking the fan shroud and the fan clutch out. In order to take that out, your intake tubes need to come off. My throttle body was already off because I was already reaching down in there. So throttle body was off. Top radiator hose needed to come off and get tucked behind where the throttle body would have been, or basically tuck it behind the upper plenum so that I had access to pull that fan shroud out. And you guys saw that in one of the clips that I did. You guys seen that I had to pull that shroud up out of there, but in order to pull that up out, I had to reach in, undo the fan blades and the fan clutch, and pull that out separately before I could pull my shroud up. So this job, very labor intensive. You're not changing this alternator on the side of the road within 15 minutes. It's not going to happen. So if you're buying one of these vehicles, just know that your alternator replacement is way more expensive. And the reason why is you need to take so much more apart to get to it. Once I had all of that stuff apart, I was able to unbolt the alternator and pull the alternator up out the top. You can't take it out the bottom. You don't have enough room between the frame, the steering rack, everything else that's in the way. You can't drop that out the bottom. It has to come out the top. And this is where projects go off the rails really quickly. This is where your basic project from start to finish might look like it's this, but all of a sudden it becomes this. And the reason why is in order to access one item, you need to take 3 or 4 other items apart just to gain the access to start taking the item out that you want. And that's what this is on an alternator. And where the projects start really derailing, guys, is when you start noticing multiple part failures within a system. The steering on this was fried. I mean, fried. There were so many things wrong with the steering on this. The pump, the tie rod ends, the rack and pinion. This required us to get really labor intensive. I haven't even told you guys what it took to get the rack out yet. I'm going to show you guys that little process here in a little bit, but that was extremely intensive. Let's do what is the toughest repair you've done on a vehicle so far? Put that down in the chat. Engine rebuild. That is very labor intensive, Jay. So usually, like, how far down did you go on that rebuild? Was it a complete teardown? That means connecting rods, crank, cam. Did you do cam bearings? How far down? Okay, so you did an engine swap, right? Where you just pulled one engine out and dropped another one in. replace the engine because it stopped working. Okay, yeah. So yeah, what you did would be what we call an engine swap, or basically just changed out the engine. When you say engine rebuild, that's gutting the entire engine apart, piece by piece, hot tanking the block, redoing the heads, putting new components back in it with new bearings. So an engine rebuild looks way different than an engine change out or swap out. But yeah, an engine swap is very labor intensive. It is. Between taking off your exhaust manifolds, disconnecting all your wiring, unhooking your transmission, it's a lot of time. Halfway through the process, and then I gave up and bought a different engine. Yeah. So usually, what I'll do is if I know I'm going to do an engine build, I will buy a junkyard core, strip the core down, work on it while I'm still driving the vehicle. Then I will just do an engine swap out when I'm ready. That's the easiest way to do that process and still be able to uh, get the job done. But yeah, the rebuild process is extremely labor intensive. Most people don't even have near enough tools to do like a full engine rebuild. You need lathes, you need tools for gapping, you need hones and bore devices, deck. You need something that'll machine a deck. So that's where it gets real expensive real fast when you're doing an engine build. And we may have that engine build, guys. We're still tossed up on what we're doing for engine build. I know we were talking about. Crimson Vortec doing an engine for that and doing a rebuild on the channel. Guys, I really am torn up. I really do think we should do the GTO instead. We should really do a GTO engine. That LS1 engine, there's a lot of potential there. Yeah, I just think that LS Goat would be a much better fit. And just so you guys see, we go. Keep this up. Let's go here. Hopefully you guys can see this. This one in the upper corner here, this is LS Goat if you guys haven't seen it yet. This is LS Goat. This is an 04 Pontiac GTO with an LS1 engine with the aluminum block. This has the potential of reaching close to 500, if not close to 6. I want to keep it under 6 to keep it streetable. I'm considering this being the engine build for the channel because I would really like to get the horsepower up on this. It needs a transmission. Well, the transmission needs to be looked at. It needs a clutch. And if I'm going to go through all the work of pulling out the transmission, taking down the clutch, I might as well just pull the engine at the same time and just do it that way. It really does make more sense. So I pulled that up to show you guys that one. But yeah, anytime you guys are in a situation where you're looking at a motor swap, that is very intensive work. Exhaust manifolds, half the time the bolts break if the motor's been in there for a long period of time. Not only that, but you have wiring that you have to watch out for. You don't want to tear or break wiring because you're going to have to fix it. Also, you're going to have sometimes lines that you have to take off, whether it be coolant lines or if some of them actually have like steering lines and oil cooler lines attached to the engine, those have to come off. Basically, if you're going to do any kind of engine swap, literally everything bolted to the engine and how it's bolted to the frame or the transmission has to come apart. And a lot of times people will leave the transmissions in, but on sports cars, I don't ever suggest leaving the transmission in. If you're going to take the time to pull that motor out, unless you pulled that transmission before, always pull the motor and transmission out because you want to have that transmission looked at. And if any service is needed, now would be the time to do it. because literally after you pull your bell housing bolts, the only thing holding the transmission in is your shift linkages, 2 bolts on your K-member, and your drive shaft. That's it. You can drop a transmission with the motor disconnected probably within a half hour, 40 minutes tops. So oftentimes, whenever I'm dealing with a situation like that, at least on sports cars, now front wheel drive cars are different. You do have to pull more of the front end apart. You do have to drop your struts, disconnect your wheel bearings, pull your CV axles. But if you're already there and you're already tearing it down that far, or if you do a cradle drop to do that motor swap, you're better off just dropping the whole cradle and take everything off of the cradle. A lot of times cradles will be extremely rusty if you live in northern climates anyway. So sometimes that's a good time to put in a K-member or something from a southern area where they don't really have rust. Best place to get K-members would be Texas, Arizona, and I would say probably anywhere near Tennessee, Oklahoma area. Once you start getting a little bit further north, you start running into some rust issues. And once you get into the Rust Belt is considered North and South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, a little bit of Missouri, Michigan, Ohio, New York. If you're in that stretch, and then anything on the East Coast up all the way up to Maine, if you're in that area, you are in the Rust Belt. And that means that anything you're going to take apart, you're going to fight rust. And boy, did we fight rust on this one. Let me double check a few things here, guys, and then I'm going to get into the breakdown on what it took to get that rack out. So good to have you guys in here on this Sunday. We do this the last Sunday of every month. We do a live stream, guys. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't already. It really does help the channel. We are trying to grow. We've been doing really well on the growth. It's been awesome. So I'm looking forward to what the new year brings. I'm going to recap some of the stuff that we have done. And then I'm also going to give more details here a little bit later in this video about what we got coming up. So I'm going to break some of that down as well. All right. So the steering rack on this nightmare behind me. Whenever you're going to do a steering rack on an SUV, and it's a rack, not a rack and pinion or a Pitman arm, idler arm situation. Crimson Vortec is a Pitman arm, idler arm. That's what's on that one. And guys, I just did the steering on that one actually. So I had a week where I had nothing but steering nightmares in here. It was a fight from the word go. It really was. Between dealing with this one that I couldn't get apart because everything was rusted tight, to one that required a second pair of hands because I was wrestling heavy gearboxes. It was a week to forget, that's for sure. I wanted to forget that week in the worst way. But I did the gearbox in this one, I did the Pitman arm in this one, and I did the idler arm in this one. I also took this one in, got an alignment, and got new tires put on it. So this one is solid. This one still has tires and alignment to do. But in order to do the rack on this one, I actually had to drop the front differential. As crazy as that sounds, whenever you're dealing with four-wheel drive stuff, oftentimes your front differential will get in the way. And the service manual tells you to pull the front differential out. I don't like pulling that front differential. It's heavy, it's hard to put back in, and if you disconnect the drive shaft on this one, you throw it out of balance, meaning that that drive shaft is balanced to be bolted in where it is. If you ever need to change U-joints on this one, you need to mark your drive shaft where it is when you take it apart, because if you mess that up, You have to take it in and everything has to get respun balanced in order for it to go back in. And that adds tremendous cost anytime you have to rebalance a drive shaft. And there's very few places that can actually rebalance drive shafts that are halfway decent. We have one here in Minnesota, but you have to go quite a ways to get to it. But they will also build drive shafts as well. So more than likely on LS Goat, we're going to be building a drive shaft for that, because if I get that car anywhere near 500 horsepower, I got to build a drive shaft for it. It will not hold with the stock drive shaft if I'm getting over 150 more horsepower than what the engine originally had. And I want to be over 500. I want to be north of 500. I want to be south of 600, but I want to be north of 500 with that car. That will make that car a literal street beast, meaning that as far as 100% street legal cars, you're going to have a hard time running against that car. And that's what I want. I'll go into that here in a little bit. But in order to get this one out, the differential has 3 mounting points. One on the front driver's side, one on the front passenger side, and then a main holding bolt on the back of the differential. So you have to access it from underneath. So you have to access it from going underneath the vehicle here, underneath, and remove that bolt on the back of that differential. I left my CV shafts in. I let the differential drop down. Now there is a breather tube that you have to have the wheel liner out so that you can access. You need this wheel liner out anyway to remove that rack, because you have to remove the steering shaft that goes in there. That steering shaft is a whole nother fight. I'll explain that in just a little bit here, guys. Once I got the differential to come down after removing the breather, it gave us the room we needed. We pulled the 3 bolts holding that rack in. There's 2 bolts here on the driver's side, 1 on the passenger side. Those are really large bolts. We're talking 15/16 socket in order to get the bolts out. On the back side of that, it had 7/8 nuts on it. Now, standard bolts on what is more or less a metric car. Very strange to me, but that's what they were. They were tight on there. So we couldn't have put a metric on it even if I had the right size metric to match. It would have been sloppy. And on main bolts like that, you need them to be, the sockets need to be tight on there, because if there's any play in it, it's just going to round off the bolt. So once we got those 3 bolts loose, took my tie rod ends down, spun those off. Those were 22 millimeter. Took those off after pulling the cotter pins. And we were able to easily knock those down because I already had it apart when I did the struts. Going to pull the steering rack out, guys, here's where the challenge is. There's a couple of lines. We took the lines off, but one of the lines got hooked when pulling that steering rack out. That steering rack has to come out the driver's side here, meaning that it has to be up high enough, tire has to be off. We have to pull that steering rack out the driver's side. We pulled the steering rack out this way. We fed the new one in without the tie rod ends on it. Fed that in, and you had to twist and spin in order to get it through the frame. So there's spots where it'll hook in the frame. Not only will the lines hook, they'll catch the differential that is hanging there, but you can get everything to clear. Just got to go slow, and you got to be patient. Don't just take a hammer and hit it, because you're going to break the lines or smash the lines. Take your time and slow down. Once you got it up in there, then you can run the 3 main bolts back in it that hold it in place and start hooking up the lines. Now, let's talk about this steering shaft. That tends to be a problem. If you have bought your steering rack online and you don't have a core charge, you might have to do this trick. Ours was rusted in place, meaning that the steering shaft that goes down to the gearbox was rusted in. We couldn't get it loose. No matter how hard we would have tried, we would have never pulled that apart. So what we did is we took a Sawzall and went in there and cut the rack so that we could pull the shaft back and take the stub out of the shaft. And it really is a very labor intensive process to do that, but you also need to put everything back in the vehicle the way it belongs. So we had to mark all of the steering shafts. We had to pull a top bolt that was behind here. That top bolt allowed us to disconnect that shaft away from where it goes into the interior. So there was one bolt that we could pull out of the way, that we could separate the shaft up higher. As we went down farther, we sawed it off because there was a stub that was rusted inside there. We actually had to, it broke the bolt, so broke the bolt to where we couldn't extract it. We had to drill out what was left of the bolt. We had to vice grip the stub that we cut off, and we had to spray a bunch of penetrating liquid in there a couple of times. We were finally able to break it loose and wiggle it out. We were able to get it to come out. Once it came out, we were able to finish cleaning up whatever burrs were left. After we drilled out that bolt, we ran a new bolt in it and double nutted it so it can't back off. Meaning that it's the double nut, what it does is acts like a lock nut. So you have one that's on there, you put the second one on and tighten it against the nut and it acts like a lock. Ideally, you would want a lock nut on it, but if you don't have a lock nut available, this is the next best thing. But we drilled it out so that we didn't have to worry about how we were going to put those two back together again. Now, the stub that we took off, if you guys had a core charge on your rack and pinion, you can't do that. You can't just cut that stub off. Usually on the steering rack, you're going to have a stub that sticks out where the steering shaft will have a spline on it. Those splines are designed to line up and slip over it so that it holds tight as you turn the wheel. Those splines are designed like that on purpose. And when you pull that apart, you're supposed to be able to separate it and take it apart. Unfortunately, on this one, it was so rusty, it wasn't going to come apart without us being really aggressive with it. And when we got it out, it was C-shaped like this, but it was tight. So we wound up having to take a punch in between here, punch down to separate this out slightly. Then we were able to take a vice grips and wiggle it, hammer it, wiggle it, hammer it, and we were finally able to get that stub out. All right, give me ones if that all made sense to you guys. Got any questions? Chat them in down below. I'll read them on screen for you guys. J1, awesome. Yeah, that's the hassle, guys, of any time we have to fight taking things apart. When we have to fight it, it becomes a really big nightmare really fast. And some vehicles, like I said, are projects that go off the rails. This one is off the rails, honestly. Give me wrenches if you guys want me to break down the cost of this. And this is at a shop that's, I'm pretty sure I'm a third of what a dealership cost is. This dealership is about 160 right now. I'm a third of that. Give me wrenches if you want me to break down. Oh, there we go. Jay's got the wrenches up. All right. All right, guys. So by the time we got done changing all of these parts out, putting everything back together, again, I still got mirrors to do. But other than that, the mirrors are the last thing left to do on this other than taking it in, getting an alignment and tires. But tire, alignment, mirrors, everything on, everything done back to the customer. He bought this car for $3,000. So $3,000 would be a good deal for a four-wheel drive if it didn't need a ton of work. And here's where things got bad. The problem was the cost of all the parts totaled $5,500. That's right. $5,500 just in the parts. Now, if I was to take my labor on this to do all of this work at a normal shop, they would have over 80 hours into this. So let's rewind this. 80 hours into this. That practically totals this car out. Just in parts alone, you are exceeding the value of the car. The value of the car is about $5,000. After adding my labor cost into it, customer all said and done, $7,500 is what they're going to owe me for this car. And this is a really good customer of mine, so I usually work things out with him. He's really good about making sure to get me squared up. So, and I cut 30 hours off of this job.
Well, I sure hope somebody...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone, because I f***ing called it!
So the reason I hit that one, guys, is anytime you're buying a used car, these are important factors to look at. How rusty is it? How hard is it going to be to fix? How much damage do you see before you even get it home? Has anything ever been touched in there? This one had nothing touched. I mean nothing. Every piece on it was original except for 2 items. 3 items. 3 items. A sway bar end link on the passenger side, a lower control arm on the passenger side, and a CV axle on the passenger side. That's it. That's all this vehicle has had since it was brand new and came off the lot. That is
You stupid.
That is lack of maintenance, not caring about your vehicles, and literally beating them to death. That means this thing was used and abused and had no life left in it when my customer bought it. Now, the life that was left in it, though, were the bones. Transmission's good. Transfer case is good. Motor internals are good as of right now. All of those internals were good. Differential was good. Those bones made up the rest of the car and made it to where this repair was worth it only for that reason. But if the motor, transmission, differential, or rear axles go out, or axles go out, now this becomes an overpriced project. And it's overpriced already, don't get me wrong, because everything we had to fix was all surface level stuff that was attached to this vehicle that should have been replaced a long time ago. The alternator was so bad it took the battery out. The battery was so bad we had to put a new battery in it. And luckily we put a new battery in it before they drove it a bunch. So we were able to save the battery that we put in there. But yeah, this is what an out of control project looks like. You start with one piece and you just have to keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And it just doesn't ever seem like it's going to stop. This thing has been in my garage for over 2 months. Plugging away on it when I can because I do this as a secondary job. This isn't my main work. So, this being a secondary job, I had limited time to work on things. But I still put in 80 hours over that time period to get this back to where it is. All right. Awesome. It's good to have you guys in here on this Saturday. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. Checking a few things here while everything's rolling. All right. Give me a fire emoji if you guys think I covered that runaway project really well. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want me to cover that would be considered a runaway project. I'll wait for those to come in. Awesome. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, it isn't so much if a motor is bad or a transmission's bad that the project comes off the rails. Projects go off the rails when everything attached to the main components starts failing. So when we have to go in and start chasing multiple items on multiple systems, that's where the projects go off the rails. That's where the cost explodes. I felt bad for my customer when they bought this because initially it ran okay. Obviously, it needed a tune-up. That's why we did the plugs and wires. That's why, or coils and plugs. It needed a tune-up. Valve cover gaskets are pretty much a standard when you're going in there. Not a big deal. Steering threw us for a loop. Suspension threw us for a loop. By the time we were all said and done, fixing all the suspension, all the steering issues, along with doing a tune-up that should have been done at least twice on this vehicle. This thing should have had new coils put in it and new plugs put in it. It had original plugs in it. And the original plugs were loose. That's even worse. All right, so let's go ahead and transition. All right, so we're going to transition over to Crimson Vortec. So Crimson Vortec, obviously I just told you guys we did the steering on it, got the alignment, got new tires put on it. If you guys are going to do tires and you're going to go to any decent tire shop and you have wheel spacers on it, take your wheel spacers off before you take it in. Because if you have wheel spacers on it, they're not going to touch the car. They're going to tell you, we can't work on this. The reason why is wheel spacers are historically not trustworthy. Because unless they're centromatic, meaning that they will center find the hub, they're not safe. Centromatic wheel spacers are the safest route you can go, but some people stack too many wheel spacers on it, and it does damage to bearings. So if you're going to run a wheel spacer, try to keep the spacer within the distance of the lug nut. So if you have the bolt coming out, make sure that your wheel spacer doesn't extend past that. Try to keep it as flush to the original wheel studs as possible. So you're only going to go about an inch, inch and a quarter spacer. That's it. If you have to go more than that, you need a different rim. So what I did was I took my spacers off before I took this in. And this made a huge difference for me being able to get the alignment done, get it straight, make sure I was good to go. Now, because I have my quick jerk alignment tools, I am going to check the front of this steering. And that will tell me if their tools were correct or their tools needed to be calibrated. If I start putting my tools on it and all of a sudden it's tracking in like most of them do. I've had ones that track a quarter inch in. What's going to happen is over time it's going to chew up the outsides of the tires because it's pushing the outside of the tires down the road. So if you notice the outside edges of your tires cupping and you run your tape measures, 9 times out of 10 you're going to find that your tires are kicked in. And if they're kicked in, you need to correct that and straighten them back out. So I do need to check that one. That might be something I'll do later today after I end the video, but this one's the main one. I need the mirrors on this one so I can get the tires done and give this back to my customer. I need the shop space. And the reason I need the shop space and the reason this one's sitting over here, if you guys have seen anything that I've done with the Kia Soul lately, the Kia Soul right now is sitting at a dealership, Kia dealership, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with that car. The issue that we're having is really not good. basically, we're looking at a motor issue. And I said this when we took it down there the first time to get it serviced. The whole reason we're doing this, and I'm not fixing it myself, the vehicle's under warranty. Technically, if your vehicle is under warranty and you have a big warranty, where we bought our car from offered a extended 200 or 20-year, 200,000 mile warranty on powertrain, meaning motor, transmission. If anything went wrong with the motor or transmission to 20 years, 200,000 miles, we were covered. We also bought an extended warranty through factory that is supposed to cover us up to 100,000. The car only has 84,000 miles on it, and we've already had a timing chain tensioner fail and what looks like to be a stretched timing chain, where I basically got real ticked real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually far more composed. I'm just a little bit absolutely livid.
Why would you change a tensioner but not put in a new timing chain? I ripped this dealership apart for this. I said, if you guys would have called me, even if Kia themselves didn't want to put the chain in it, I said, if you guys would have called me, I would have authorized that chain to go in and I would have paid for it myself. You guys were already there. You guys already had it apart. All you would have had to do was put the chain in. You already had the tension off of the chain. Could have just slipped the chain off, slipped the new one on, done. But nope. According to Kia, all we want to do is change that tensioner. So the tensioner failed. They pulled that one out, put the new one in, pulled the pin, done. Well, here we are. We're back with the car at the dealership. It's chattering at the timing chain because the chain stretched.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually far more composed. I'm just a little bit absolutely livid.
Yeah, I was not a happy camper with that. I was running hot. And then to add fuel to that fire, they decided, well, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to put this back together, give it to you, and not say anything. Then when you bring it back the second time complaining of an engine noise, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, we don't hear it. Could you come down and explain what you're hearing to us? I went red hot, guys. As a mechanic, I can tell you, you don't ask your customer to come in and explain what's wrong with the car. You're the mechanic. Figure it out. They failed to figure it out. Couldn't hear it. As soon as I got down and I was there with the mechanic, who was going to work on it, by the way, he got on it, started it up, heard the chatter right away, said right there, you can hear it chattering. He's like, yeah, and I think it does it when we give it a little RPM. He gave it a little RPM, started chattering, and I'm like, sure enough, right there. I said, that's the problem. Fix it. Simple. You're the mechanic. Because if you guys want me to take it back and I have to void my warranty and I'm going to fix it, I'm putting the whole timing chain set in it. I ain't doing just one piece. That's straight up bullshit. I was pissed that day. You have to ask your customer to come down and tell you what's wrong with the car so you can fix it. Yeah, I'm not done running them through the mill yet. Once we get the car back, if it's running right, guys, I will be doing a hit piece video on that particular dealership. Because that was straight up BS. That should have never happened. And for somebody who's not a mechanic, that's a worst case situation. If you're not a mechanic and you're in that situation, you're SOL. Because you're going to wait for that motor to blow up. And I stood there and told the service writer that. I said, if you guys would have given this back to somebody who wasn't a mechanic, they wouldn't have heard that. And the minute they didn't hear it and they would have kept driving it, you guys would have been putting a motor in this. Of course, he had an expression like, whoa, because he was not a mechanic. Their service writers are not mechanics, guys. Most service writers are not mechanics. They don't turn wrenches. Most of them have never put a wrench in their hand. There are certain content creators that are on this platform that have never turned a wrench. And they're the ones I don't get along with on this platform and other platforms. There are ones I respect a lot because they have actually turned wrenches. They have actually fixed vehicles. They have actually diagnosed problems. They weren't just a service writer in a shop and all of a sudden decided to create a YouTube channel and do basically lying content on auto repair. Tell you what, if you guys know any of those content creators, drop them in the chat right now. I want to see if you guys know the ones that I know. Yeah, I would say he might be one of them, but there's another one that's even worse. Well, I mean, if he fixed M4 that blew up, did he fix it before or after it blew up? That would be my question. If he fixed it and then it blew up, yeah, he's not a good mechanic. This is another one, guys, that I don't ever want you guys to follow. I'm going to type him in the chat rather than saying it. Oh, after? Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. Don't ever follow that one. He is a service writer who basically makes lying content on everybody. There was a content creator who was a marine biologist who all he did was create a channel and he worked on his own stuff. And he embarrassed this guy. Embarrassed him. Because he took the time to turn the wrenches himself. And that one was... that was him. Yeah, so the top one here that I put in there, like I said, I don't want to give these guys clout. I'm not saying it. I typed it in down below, meaning that people have to watch and look at the live chat in order to see who I said. But the one below it, these two got into a huge feud. The bottom one is a marine biologist. He's not a mechanic, but he bought a Mustang, turned it into a drift car, and he's worked on his own stuff. And these two got into a rather big beef because the top one decided he was going to get smart and tell the bottom one he's doing everything wrong. You're going to tell somebody who's not a mechanic, who's only doing this to have fun, that he's doing it wrong when his repair worked. And actually, it was the right way to do it. So these two wound up getting into a back and forth feud. I mean, huge. This took place probably 2-3 years ago. This was a massive feud that just lit up the automotive world. Give me ones if you guys know who those two were. If you guys are watching the live chat, give me ones if you guys know who they were or who they are. Yeah, I have to put them in the chat, guys. I can't say them on air because, again, that feud got really bad, and even mentioning them or using them as part of your tags in your video, it doesn't go well for automotive content creators. So I just don't do it. I normally don't shout guys out like this, but when I'm dealing with a situation at a dealership that reminds me of people like this, it is what it is. You're going to get thrown under the bus because you're the part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. And yeah, that top one is part of the problem. The bottom one is more like part of the solution because he looks for creative ways to actually fix stuff and repair his own things. The top one, nope. He claims to have worked for Ford. If you look into him, he was a service writer for Ford, never a mechanic. That being said, you can't trust what he's saying because he doesn't have real world experience. He doesn't actually turn wrenches. When I'm showing you guys what is going on in here, I turned the wrenches. When I say we, I have people that come in and give me a hand, moving things here and there and lifting things, bringing a torch if I need one, because I don't carry a torch in here for obvious reasons. I don't need the fire hazard in here, so I don't have one. If I need one, a friend of mine has one. I have him come over with his torch. We do what we have to do, but we have water standing by to put fires out. That's how we do it here. This is how I do it here. You guys are seeing me actually turn the wrenches. I've turned them in the past. Many of my old school videos, if you guys look back at my old stuff, I took the time to literally turn every single bolt and wrench on every video. But obviously, there were breaks in it, and it got kind of boring. So I condensed a lot of my content here. By condensing my content, it made things a whole lot more streamlined. More people wanted to watch because I showed exactly how to take the stuff apart. So that's what I focused on. I focused on that aspect alone. My Sundays, I tend to get a little off the rails. Again, off the rails. I tend to go this route just to give you guys more content. So you guys don't know those two. Okay. All right. But yeah, this is where me and certain content creators we don't get along. We don't see eye to eye. If they're not willing to turn wrenches themselves, I can't support what they're doing. If they're not the ones turning the wrenches, if they're not the ones who have already spent their time under the hood, my respect for them goes down. And it has to. And it should for you guys too. Anyone who sits there and claims that they know how to do stuff and then they're doing shady stuff or telling people the opposite of what they should be doing don't belong doing content. Because the worst part about it is the more false and wrong content is put out there, especially with this stuff, the more people can get hurt. When I tell people how to do a wheel bearing, I'm telling them how to do it right. The right way is to make sure you torque the wheel bearing back into place. That means the mounting bolts and the center bolts. Anyone who says ram it in with an impact doesn't belong giving anyone advice. So yeah, when I went down to Kia and I had to sit there, and this was a 20-minute conversation that honestly should have never been had. We should have never had to do this. But they couldn't hear it. They couldn't hear the chatter that took me 2 seconds after it was fired up. And not more than 30 seconds after he started revving it, we could hear the chatter, both me and the mechanic. And he's like, yeah, there's a chatter there. It's a stretch chain. I'm like, well, they didn't put a chain in it. I'm like, you guys had it here to put the tensioner in it. You guys didn't put the chain in it. What do you expect? A tensioner fails, the chain has to go. And the longer it's left in there, the more it's going to damage the gears, meaning you might have to put a gear set in it. So that being said, if Kia fixes it, then it's fine. If they don't, it's going to come and sit right here. I'm going to tear the damn thing apart, and I'm going to fix it. Because we're not going to go through this. I'm not going to grenade a motor just because I want to prove that they're a bunch of idiots. I warn people about this very thing. Oftentimes I'll trust a shade tree mechanic, somebody who's actually physically had to turn the wrenches themselves and has learned the hard way what to do and what not to do, over somebody that has zero experience, that has no knowledge, but they come off acting like they do. And I hate to do this. I really hate to do this. But guys, if you're just out of college and you're turning wrenches, you need real world experience. You need to have the wrenches in your hand. You need to take the stuff apart. You need to know how to fix things and what happens when things go wrong. You don't learn that from a textbook. I have hated the tech colleges for this because they set people up for failure. They don't set them up for success. They teach them, put a scan tool on it and it'll tell you everything you need to know. Wrong. Wrong. You can't always go off the scan tool. The scan tool is just that, a tool. It'll give you a look inside to what is going on inside the computer. It'll give you an idea on what it could be. It doesn't mean that that's the problem. I've gotten into huge arguments on people with this online saying, just put a scan tool on it, it'll tell you. I've put scan tools on cars. They have read correct, but there was still a check engine light. Didn't throw a code. Now what? Now what? Now the pieces aren't lining up. Things aren't clicking into place because now the computer won't tell you what's wrong, even though there is a warning light saying that there's something wrong. Once you pull the live data, you'll figure it out. And you can look at the live data and compare that to where the parameters should be, and it'll give you the right direction to go, not necessarily what's wrong. You could have a bad temp sensor throwing a code. It might not read in the computer because technically the temp sensor is slightly working, but it's not reading correctly. Once you pull the live data, you'll see that it's not reading correctly if all of a sudden your engine's reading 500 degrees or 0 degrees after it's been running. Technically, it's still showing a reading. It's not the right reading, but it's a reading. This is what I'm talking about. This is where real-world experience outweighs anyone with just a piece of paper. This is why I have not been a fan of colleges. Because they're going to take your money and not give you the real-world experience that you need when you get out. You want to learn how to work on cars? Mentor under a seasoned mechanic. And when I mean seasoned, he needs to have turned wrenches for at least 10 years himself. I have turned wrenches for 30 years, guys. I started when I was really young. Like, really, really young. I started handing my dad wrenches when I was like 7. Yeah, when I was 7 years old, I started handing my dad wrenches. I was turning wrenches with him when I was 13. So you guys can do the math on that to figure out how old I am. Gave you guys enough tips there. So yeah, when it comes down to it, don't always trust the dealerships. Don't always look to them to have all the answers. Do your own homework. Have good scan tools. Buy good scan tools. I'm going to be covering one in a clip coming up in the future. I will more than likely include it in my next Sunday live. I will bring it out and kind of give you guys the details of this. The reason I'm not doing it now is I really want to play around with it, test it out, learn all the functions before I do a video for you guys. I really hate doing one that I haven't fully tested myself. So I'm going to work with that over the next month or so. I'm going to tinker with it and get it dialed in to where I'm pretty comfortable with all the settings. I basically needed that scan tool on this car for the throttle body because I had to do a throttle body relearn and I had to do it in the computer. I tried doing the mechanical version that you can learn online. It didn't work. I put out a video about how to do the mechanical version online. That didn't work. But I also had to do the scan tool. The scan tool got it reset for me. So I will cover that. But yes, anyone who's just using scan tools to try to diagnose everything, they are going to steer you wrong. Don't just trust a mechanic that says, well, it's not throwing a code. Because those are the kind of mechanics that don't have the experience. They don't have the knowledge. When I can go down and listen to an engine for less than 2 minutes and diagnose and tell you everything that's wrong with that engine, you're not a good mechanic. Because you should be able to spot that. It's your job to spot that. And the average person isn't going to. So what are you going to do? Send a car out there that could wind up having a wheel fall off of it because you were not a good mechanic? Or you ran the axle nut down with an impact and you over tightened it and the customer's going down the road and all of a sudden the wheel comes flying off. Hits another car and hurts somebody. All because you don't have the knowledge or you didn't have the skills or you didn't take the time to learn. Here's the thing. Once you're out of college, that's when your real learning has to begin. You have to put in the time. You have to be willing to push yourself, learn things, and look outside the conventional way of learning to learn what you need to do. They're handing you a piece of paper. They're not handing you a skill set. I really hope people understand that and learn that. Colleges do not hand you a skill set. They hand you a piece of paper that allows you to go get the skill set. That's what that is. I have said college is a scam for a long time. Long time. All right, give me some fires in the chat on that one, guys. I went hard on the weeds, and then once I get some fire emojis here, we're going to break down Crimson Vortex over here, what's going on with it, and I'm going to get into Big Red, and then I'm going to end with LS Goat content. Jay, awesome. If you guys got any questions, chat them in down below. I'll help you guys with your projects. All right, so let's go ahead. What's going on now with Crimson Vortex? Currently, I could have this thing sold. Actually, the customer who owns this one wants to buy this one. I also have a neighbor of mine who wants to buy this one. So I have this sold, but I can't sell it until I know what's going on with the Kia. Until I know what's going on with Champagne Bubbles, I can't let go of Crimson Vortex. This thing is 100% reliable. I can get in it now, turn the key, and go. This needs to stick around until I know that the Kia is figured out. And if the Kia isn't going to be figured out, then I got to get rid of it, and I got to get something else that I can put in its place that will serve the same or a better purpose. I am considering looking at a Buick Encore. My wife drives it. She doesn't like driving bigger vehicles. This is about the extent of the size she does like to drive. She can drive my pickup, but she doesn't like my pickup as much. She keeps it, she would keep it around if I wasn't here, but it's a bigger truck is harder to get into parking spots. She likes her smaller vehicles. So for daily driving, she would always want to have a smaller vehicle. But yeah, Crimson Vortex, what's left to fix on it? Well, I noticed that it needs some valve cover gaskets. think I did them back when I first got the vehicle about 4 years ago. It also needs a tune-up. It needs shocks all the way around, rear and front. I got the front shocks already sitting here. I just got to get time to get them put in. So that's some videos coming up for you guys here in the new year. Also, I've got, like I said, the full tune-up and the valve cover gaskets that I got to do. As far as that goes, once that stuff is done, this thing is done. Everything works on it. Everything's in great shape. Four-wheel drive is awesome. I mean, there's nothing it absolutely needs. It's already had transmission flush done, gets regular oil changes. It's sitting really good, runs awesome, fires up real quick. So it's just some minor tune-up stuff and some shock work that's left to do for Crimson Vortec. You guys will see some videos on the steering rack or the steering gear and the Pitman and idle arm that I did. I do have some coming up on that. But as far as the rest goes, everything else is going to be pretty basic for this. It's just going to be if and when we let this one go. Next, we have Big Red. So let's do it this way, guys. So over here is Big Red. We'll be talking about him in a little bit. Big Red is the 2013 Silverado. And there's been a lot of work done to this kind of behind the scenes, guys. I haven't gotten everything out. I've done some things. You guys seen me do the tonneau cover repair. We did the bed liner in it. We did the undercoating in it. That was done really shoddy. So I got to redo it. So I will be redoing that. There is tune-up that needs to happen to that one. So it needs coils, plugs, wires. That one does have wires. Valve cover gaskets. Valve covers, because I'm going to change those out. The old valve covers have galleys in them that I can't clean out. So I'm just swapping out the valve covers to begin with. Just done. Actually, I got red ones to match the color of the truck. So it'll have red valve covers to match the exterior paint. And then once I do that, I have front struts to do in that one. And when I do the front struts, I'm going to be adding a leveling kit to that truck. Right now, the truck does nosedive quite a bit. There is a 2-inch difference between the rear and the front. I want to get this within an inch. So I want to get this up just a little bit more. Also on the front of this truck, it has a gray valance piece between the chrome bumpers. And these are just bumper covers. These aren't real bumpers. They're just plastic. So in between here, this piece is silver. Every time you get a nasty rock chip, it scratches that silver. I don't want to deal with that, so I'm swapping it out to a black one, and I'm going to run chrome tow hooks. I'll be doing a video on all of that next year. Once I get all of that done, we will be doing an LED project in this one in the headlights and replacing the turn signal bulbs. I've already put the LEDs in the fog lights. I'll make a separate clip on that one, guys, on how to do that. So that will be coming up as well. There is one more thing that I will show you guys here for Big Red. Now, there's minor things we're going to do. And there's like 2 more major things we got to do. I have to figure out if I have a bad camshaft or bad lifters, I should say, in Big Red. And if I do, then what I have in my hand ain't going to matter. But if you're buying one that the cam is still good and it's running really strong and it doesn't make any lifter noise, then you may want to consider buying this. What this is an AFM DFM disabler. This plugs into the OBD2 port. This one is the low profile, so it doesn't stick out very far, meaning my knee or leg won't catch this one and destroy my port. But you might want to get this and install it in your Silverado Sierra, Yukon, or Suburban, or Tahoe. The reason you would want this is you will get rid of that annoying 4-cylinder mode that's on your vehicle. The 4-cylinder mode is what wrecks the lifters. The longer you run it in the 4-cylinder mode, the harder it is on the lifters. Because what happens is when those cylinders shut off, the push rods are still going, but they shut off the oil going to the lifter. So the lifter collapses and the valves won't open. By putting this in there, you're going to remove that entire system, and it'll make sure that all 8 cylinders are firing when they're supposed to fire. They will not cut out. Super, super, super useful device. This will run you about $140. You can buy ones cheaper, but I don't suggest it. And when you buy them cheaper, oftentimes they will drain your battery dead if you don't unplug them. The more you plug and unplug your OBD2 port, the higher chance you could have of wrecking something. So this is a better way to go because this will not damage your OBD2 port and it will not drain your battery like the other ones will. Give me wrenches if you guys like that particular product that I just demoed here for you guys. Toss some wrenches up for me. Awesome, Jay. Yeah, that tool is really, really useful. And I strongly suggest anyone who has a GM product to buy one. Eliminate that 4-cylinder mode as quickly as possible when buying a used vehicle. Now, if your vehicle already has 200,000 miles on it, the damage is already done. Mine's got 120 on it, so I got some life into it. Meaning I got a little bit of time left, but I do have to get it in there soon. Now, some of the issue that I might be hearing might be an exhaust leak. If that's the case, I will need to put a set of shorty headers on it so that I can reseal the exhaust manifolds and get rid of the exhaust tick that it has. It does have an exhaust tick. I did hear it, and I got to fix it. So that will be one more item that I've got to do, and I'll be working on that as soon as this one's out of the way and I can get room to pull the truck in. I will be working on some of those projects between this and Big Red when it's in here. And between the two, I'm hoping to knock them out before I know exactly what's going on with the Kia. And if Kia doesn't want to fix it, it's coming back here and we're going to fix it. Because I'm not doing this. I'm not dealing with a shoddy dealership and them trying to tie our hands. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if they take it apart to find out the point of failure and they don't want to fix it, I'm going down with a trailer and I'm picking it up. I will take my Silverado down. I will rent a U-Haul trailer if I have to, and I'm picking that car up. And I will bring it back here, I will unload it, push it into the garage, and it will get fixed. That's what's going to happen with that car. Because we're not doing this. I refuse to let shoddy work like that slide. And if I have to void my warranty to fix it, then I will never buy nor trust any Kia ever again. And I will make plenty of content running them through the mill. Yeah, I know you guys are already going to say the mistake was you chose to buy a Kia, but at the time it was what we could afford to buy brand new. We bought it because of the warranty. We thought maybe the dealership itself was halfway decent and was going to stand behind what they said. And we've ran into nothing but problem after problem after problem. And the shortcuts that were taken on the repair was absolutely disgusting. All right, so we're going to cover the last one here before the end of the year. Let's go ahead and talk about LS Goat. This one, guys, is going to be a fun project for me. I've had many sports cars. I've built quite a few cars. I've built a Mustang, two Mustangs actually, an 83 and an 86. The 86 did not have the mass airflow sensor, so I added the mass airflow so that we could tune the car. And through that process, I was able to tune that car and actually make that car as fast as my brother's 2002 Trans Am that he had at the time. And that car could actually take him off the line. A stock 2002 Trans Am should have just completely dominated a Fox body Mustang. And I pretty much left him sitting still. So, yeah, this will be a fun project for us, guys. We're gonna learn a lot. We're gonna do a lot. This is not just gonna be a simple tune up and drive it. There's stuff wrong with this car. This car was driven hard. It needs suspension. It needs shocks. It needs struts. It might need some of the suspension components replaced. It needs brakes. If I'm going to build a car that's going to have over 500 horsepower, we're doing brake upgrades. It's going to get upgraded to drilled and slotted rotors. It may get upgraded to different piston calipers depending on what's in there currently. If I have 2 piston in the rear and 2 piston in the front, I may leave the calipers. Big may. If I think that it isn't going to be enough to stop the car, I will upgrade to a 4-piston caliper up front. I may not upgrade the back because if you're doing a burnout, you don't really want that much pressure on the rear anyway. You want that one to be a little bit more loose. But usually they say 60 to 70% of your stopping is done on your front. That's pretty close to true. Some vehicles, it's closer to 80% is done by your front. Like the Kia, about 80% is done on the front. On a truck, yeah, you're closer to that 80, probably 75% is done on your front brakes, not on your back. You do need a little bit of pressure there to just keep them from doing a burnout when you're holding the brake. So there needs to be a little bit of brake pressure there, but the majority of your braking is done on your front. So yeah, it'll need brake work. We got light work that we're going to be doing. These headlights are completely toasted, guys. Completely toasted. I got different side markers going in it. I got different tail lights going in it. I got a new wing to put on it because the current wing is cracked. And if I leave that on there, even if I was traveling at a halfway decent speed, this could partially crack off, whip around, and wreck the car. So I need to fix that wing before I start getting too crazy with the car. It needs seats. So we need to put seats in it. The stock ones are in really bad shape, and they're cracked up really, really bad. I am going to go with a 2-tone interior. It is leather, so I'm going to do a leather gray insert, black surrounds on it, and then have GTO written on the shoulder pad. So it'll have GTO there. Pretty much close to stock, except for the stock black ones were all black. They didn't have an insert in them. I'm going to do the insert in it. I want to pull more of the gray color out of the interior. So I'm going to include the little bit of gray insert in the seat pad. And we got to do front and back. The backs are in worse shape than the front, sadly. So we got to do front and back. We got to fix that. The car was involved in an accident. I'm telling you guys this right now to be 100% transparent. It was involved in an accident. It wasn't recorded. So I'm going to guess that somebody decided to fix it on their own. And one of the areas we're going to have to be concerned about is this passenger side here. The passenger side on the bumper cover to the hood, there is a pretty decent gap where I can shove my fingers into the gap and slide it all the way to the headlight. So what'll probably have to happen is the bumper cover will have to come off. The headlights are going to come out anyway because I'm changing those out to LED and changing the lenses so that they're clean. And then we might have to put a jack underneath on the firewall, or not on the firewall, on the radiator core support. And on the core support, we might have to jack up that passenger side to get everything to level back out. So our driver's side looks good. Our passenger side is low, putting a big gap here. I might have to jack that passenger side up to level that back out and straighten that core support out a little bit. It might be pushed down. And that will also tell when it's alignment time, how bad it is when I take it in for alignment. And if it's as bad as I think it might be, then yeah, we might be doing that as well. So it's just going to be a matter of seeing what is there, how bad it is, and what I've got to do to fix it. Exhaust work, we've already done exhaust work. I did exhaust work on this. It had a muffler delete, and then it had a baffled muffler put in it on this one. Big Red, we took the muffler out completely. It's basically straight piped after the catalytic converter. And it rumbles. It really does sound like it's almost straight piped. It's a little bit deeper tone because it's got a 2.5 inch, or it has mostly a 3-inch pipe all the way until it gets back farther. Then it goes to 2.5. And yes, the GTO is straight piped. Now, on that, when I go to pull the transmission, because we're going to check the synchros, we're going to get everything meshed up tight so that it's supposed to be, so we're not skipping gears or missing gears. We are going to replace the synchros in it and possibly look at clutch packs if we got to put clutch packs in it. It definitely needs a clutch. The clutch is shot. There's something really wrong with the clutch. I would not feel comfortable doing a burnout in Big Red or in LS Goat right now. I would have a feeling that LS Goat would spit the clutch out if I tried. So clutch is got to go. Transmission, the synchros are going to get checked and tighten up the gear packs. Also, I'm putting a short throw shifter in it and a skip shift eliminator. Those cars, the GTOs, the Firebirds, the Camaros, and even some of the Corvettes came what they called a skip shift, meaning that if you were in first gear, you went to second. If you weren't at a certain RPM range, it would want you to skip that shift. Well, when it skips the shift, if you're if you're throttling it and it tells you to skip, you're going to pull it right into fourth gear and it's going to bog on you. So you put the skip shift eliminator in it, and no matter what RPM you are in from first, when you pull it back, it will go into second. It won't skip over that gear. And it's super annoying. I had to deal with it in my brother's 2002 Trans Am. He had a WS6. We put the skip shift eliminator in it and made that car just 100 times better. It was way more fun to drive. Prior to that, if you were just kind of tooling around with the car, it would happen to you more often. If you were really hard into it and throttling it and your RPMs were way up, it would let you go in. But the minute you were just kind of tooling around with the car, it would do that. It would make you go to fourth. And it's like, okay, I'm sick of this. I'm not doing it. And if you weren't watching for the light on the dash when it happened, because if the light happens, you can just go up to third. But if you don't see the light and you just pull it back, it slides you right into fourth. So it was a stupid thing that GM did, and I was never a fan of that. But luckily, they made an eliminator for it. So we just plug the eliminator in, and it's done. So that's what's going to happen with that. We're going to put the eliminator in it and move forward on the GTO. Motor-wise, yeah, the motor is going to probably have to come out, guys. Just 100% honest, in order to get 500 horsepower, it's got to come out. It's got to get stripped down to bare block, and we have to build it for that kind of horsepower. We don't just slap a set of heads and cam in it, push it up to the 500 horse and call it good, because what happens is your bottom end isn't built for it. That bottom stock end is maybe can handle 400 horsepower. Stock, they come at about 325, 320. So they're nothing huge. You don't even see hardly the 350 horsepower ones. Those are a very rare option for the engine. And oftentimes you need to check the block to make sure you can withstand the additional horsepower you're putting down to it. So on that one, motor will be coming out. You will get stripped down. I will probably put the car back into storage after I pulled the motor, the trans, the drive shaft out. I'll just put the car back into storage. It'll sit there until I have everything rebuilt and ready to drop back in. And part of that will be getting the motor built, getting the transmission back from the transmission shop, getting the right clutch for it. The clutch that we're going to do with that one, guys, we're going to do at least a stage 2, if not a stage 3 clutch. And what does that look like? That requires either a twin disc McLeod clutch, which is about as close to street racing clutch that you can get, or we're going to go with the center force dual friction. And I've ran center force dual friction on a Mustang, the black Mustang that I had that beat my brother's Trans Am. I had a center force dual friction clutch in it. And I could literally dump the clutch and drop it into gear, and it would just take off. In fact, it generated so much torque from the motor through the clutch into the transmission that I actually shelled the transmission out just before I sold the car, and I had to swap the tranny the night before. So just so we don't do that again, I'm going to make sure the transmission can withstand that this time. And in order to do that, I need to make sure the drive shaft can handle it as well, because the last thing I want to do is put a shock to that drive shaft, that stock one, and spit the drive shaft out and bang up the entire underside of the car. The underside has fuel lines and brake lines running underneath there. The last thing I want is a drive shaft to come loose. Putting a drive shaft hoop on there isn't really an option on that car because you don't have the room underneath it. It is a very tight area. So we're better off building a drive shaft that'll withstand 500 horsepower or 600 or even 800. Honestly, with driveline stuff, whenever you guys are spending the money, the little bit more that you can build it to is worth it. Let's say we build a drive shaft to 800 horsepower. It can withstand 800 horsepower all day long. It can handle 800 horsepower. That means that if we're only building the car between that 5 to 600, we're never going to get close to where we're going to shred a drive shaft. And that's what you want. You want all your components to be strong enough to handle whatever you do up front. And this was something I learned long ago when I was playing with the Mustangs, when I was playing with sports cars, is that if I'm going to put big horsepower here, every component behind it needs to be that much stronger to withstand what that motor could do to everything else that's behind it. That's how you build a car. Let's get some fire emojis for that one, guys. I just basically told you how to build a street car. I literally told you guys how to build a street car. Let's see some fires. Checking something while you guys are doing the chat stuff down below, guys. been a while since I played with my streaming software. I forgot I had to turn off the autofocus. But, all right. So yeah, if you guys are building a street car, that's how you guys do it. Decide how much horsepower you're going to give the car. Once you decide how much horsepower you're going to give it, you're going to take everything from the motor back apart. Take out the clutch, take out the transmission, take out the drive shaft. In many cases, you might even take out the rear differential. Then you're going to build those components to handle more horsepower than what you blueprinted the motor for. So if you said you want 600 horsepower out of your motor, you're going to build the rest of the driveline to be able to withstand 800. And when you do that, no matter how hard you mash the pedal, you will not break driveline components. That's how you do it. The weak point on this car, I'm going to give you guys the weak point right now. The weak point on this car is this car right here. That car has independent rear suspension out of the Corvette setups. So, unlike its sister car, the Firebird had a solid rear axle. This has an independent rear suspension. This car rides like a rocket ship. It's smooth and it flies. Problem is the CV shafts. So, between the differential, it runs a CV shaft going out away from the main center section. Those CV shafts are the weak point. If you shred one of those, you're going to bang up all your suspension components and tear everything up. So where I'm going to have to fight and figure out how I'm going to do those CV shafts, might have to source some from an aftermarket source. Might have to find somebody that has a resource to get aftermarket CV shafts. Somebody who makes them. So I can have a stronger CV shaft that will withstand the added torque that a 500 horsepower engine will make. Now, how am I going to get to that 500 horsepower in the GTO? Well, that's where the trick and the magic lies. Some of this is going to come from us bumping our compression up slightly. We're going to do that by pulling heads and getting a different set of heads. We're going to run a lower CC chambered head, meaning it's going to have more compression. Also, we're going to run at least a stage 2, if not a stage 3 cam, meaning I'm going to be looking at BTR, Brian Tooley Racing, or I'm going to be looking at Texas Speed. Texas Speed offers a full setup, meaning I could get cam, lifters, heads, and everything is calibrated to work with each other to give you the maximum amount of horsepower. Like I said, my goal is to be over 500, but I need to be under 600. I don't want over 600 on a street application. Most people are like, well, you got a manual, go as much horsepower as you possibly can. Wrong way of thinking. What can happen is you'll build a car that motor-wise you can't control because the rest of the car isn't equipped to handle it. Once you go over the 600 barrier, guys, on horsepower, everything must get beefed up dramatically. There is no more minor upgrades to the drivetrain at that point. Anytime you're pushing above 600, all of your driveline components need to be upgraded as high as you can possibly get them. If I was going to go anything over 600 all the way up to 1,000, I would have to run, more than likely, the twin disc McLeod clutch, just so I could hold that power to the transmission. I would need an upgraded transmission that had upgraded gears and upgraded input and output shafts, so I wouldn't shear them off. I would need a much heavier and larger drive shaft that may not even fit under the car. I would also need an upgraded differential that won't shred the minute I put that torque to it. So now you guys understand why I got my horsepower set where I do. Over 500, under 600. That is the sweet spot for most street applications. If you're driving a manual. If you got an automatic, that number needs to come down. If you're running an automatic, you need to be under 500. And the reason why is the amount of upgrades you have to do to the transmission makes the transmission so expensive that it's basically you're spending just as much in the transmission as you are in the motor. To give you guys an idea, if you are building a transmission, to do it right and to build it strong, you are spending $1,000 per gear. If you have a 6-speed transmission, you're spending $6,000. That's not usually including torque converter. That is the internal build of the transmission. Housing, internal, which would be throttle body, or I should say valve body, not throttle body. Valve body, clutch packs, gearing, your pump, all of those internals. There's a reason I don't deal with internal transmission stuff. There's guys that specialize in this that's all they've done with their automotive experience. They tear transmissions apart. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be an expert on transmissions when I don't take them apart internally. I'll swap them out, I'll pull them down, but when it comes down to rebuilding them, I hand them off to people who do that every single day. And that's the key. If you guys know where your strengths are, play on your strengths. Avoid giving into your weaknesses. When you give into your weaknesses, that's when you'll make mistakes. That's when you'll have that learning curve that you need to do. I'm not doing a learning curve on that kind of stuff when I'm dealing with those kind of dollars and that kind of money to be able to do what we're going to do with that car. I'm not going to play around with that. So I will hand that off. The machining wise, I will hand the machining off. They have the tools. I don't. I don't have a lathe. I don't have a bore. I can't do all that stuff. They can. They will do that. I will get it back together and I will assemble it. And I have assembled quite a few motors. All right. Well, for anybody in the chat, guys, chat in anything you want down below. Any questions, anything you guys want me to cover yet, chat that in right now. And I'll give you guys a minute or two to do that. And then I will probably go ahead and wrap this one up because I got to get mirrors on this one. Like I said, that mirror is completely busted. You can't even see out of it. It's so cracked. It's not even safe for my customer to drive it. So I'm going to fix that mirror for him. Actually, I'm putting 2 mirrors on. I'm going to be doing passenger side and driver side. So once I learn how to take the door panels apart. And guys, always use resources that you have available to you. If you have the internet available, look up videos on how to take certain things apart, certain door panels apart. Not all of them are the same. Not all of them are built the same. Look it up. Or ask people like me that do these kind of videos, hey, could you make a video on that? I always invite people that are subscribed to me or part of the channel or a mod or whoever to chat in what they're struggling with. And if I have the vehicle available, I'll do a video on how to do it for you guys. I'll show you guys how to take the stuff apart. The majority of my short form content is literally taking stuff apart for you guys. Shows you how to take it apart, how to put it back together, and usually the warning signs and dangers of not doing certain things. Like steering rack, you have to get it aligned. Have to. You can try to do it yourself if you have the tools. Quick trick alignment tools right there. If you have them, you can try to do it, but you got to have the right measurements. You got to know what you need. I was able to set toe in, toe out with that setup, but I don't have all my measurements to do caster and camber, so I won't do it. I will give it to the shop that's doing my tires. They can set it because then they can give me the tire warranty a little bit, and be able to extend that tire warranty and actually fulfill the tire warranty if something goes wrong. So they will do the final alignment, but I got the toe in, toe out, zeroed out. It is zeroed out right now. If I take this out of the garage, the steering wheel will be straight because I fixed that. And I won't chop tires, but because I got my toe in, toe out set. Now, it still might be off because caster camber and stuff like that. That stuff all has to get straightened out at the shop. You got to have the tools that give you the measurements for it, and I don't have that. I'm missing one that was supposed to come with my kit. They never did fix that. But honestly, what I got works for me. I can set the toe in, toe out, get it to the alignment shop, and then they can finish fixing that. So, all right, guys, I don't see any more chats from you guys. So, guys, this has been a really, really good live. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We do this the last Sunday of every month. So my next one will be the end of January. You guys, if my YouTube algorithm works better for me, I might start doing them every Sunday. I'll just do a live every Sunday. But if it doesn't, then, I'll just keep it to once a month. It doesn't really hurt, in that aspect. And honestly, I don't mind making the short form content as well. Sometimes I can get on the rant and I can rant about things that are going on, especially with news stuff. I haven't done news in a long time. Some of the news stuff I got away from because it was getting to be very toxic. It was all about EVs.
You stupid.
And it got to the point where I was hitting this sound effect so much that I just didn't think there was really a point for me to really do the news anymore. So yeah, when it comes to that, if you guys want to see news, hey, drop a comment. I'll start doing some news again. But otherwise, I try to stick to the actual repair stuff and then maybe a rant once a month on things that are going on. Bring you guys up to date on projects, give you guys a sneak peek. Some of the stuff you guys are going to see, I talked about here, but you guys are going to see it in clips that are coming up. So, all right, guys, thank you for watching today. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell so you get notified when I go live or when I drop new videos. And as always, guys, I'll see you on the next one.